Hi, I'm Rachel Lancaster, and this is the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started, and the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife and sharing some fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now's our time. In today's podcast, I talked to Melissa Talago, who took her own passion for walking and created a global network called Glamoraks, which enables women to connect and walk together. Glamoraks is an online community that Melissa has created out of nothing, pretty much, for women who walk. So she's bringing women together from all over the world, actually, now, aren't you? You've got members. Yeah. Who like to go on a good hike. So how did you come to set up Glamoraks and why?
Okay, so originally I went for a walk on my own in about 2014, I can't remember, but I had a free weekend and I took myself off for a walk along the coast on my own. And I wanted it to be like a little adventure. So I took a backpack and I walked 14 miles and I stayed at a hostel, shared a room with complete strangers. And they were all in the 20s and there was me and I wasn't in my 20s. And then I turned and walked back the next day and it was hideous weather, horizontal rain, gale force winds, but I loved it so much. I just loved it. And so I started asking my friends if they wanted to come walk with me. And so initially I took 4 of them, we went for a weekend, and then I took 8 of them, we went for a weekend, and then took 16 of us and we went away. And I nicknamed them the Glamoraks because these were women who I normally hang out with, girls' nights out and school balls and seeing them at school gates and career women. And they always looked polished and put together and not your idea of a typical walker. And so I said, well, you guys are Glamoraks because you wear anoraks, but you're quite glamorous. And I'm not really glamorous, but I thought they were definitely glamorous. So the name just stuck. And then what happened was in January last year, so a year ago, a press opportunity landed in my inbox, and it was for Top Santé magazine, and they wanted to talk to women who enjoyed walking. And so I interviewed with them, and they were going to write this big piece. And I just thought, with my PR hat on, I can't have this amazing piece of coverage without driving people to something. And so I thought, well, actually, I've been thinking about getting more women walking for ages. Why don't I just set up a Facebook group for women who like walking called Glamoraks? So I did, and I set up a website overnight, one of those sort of template-based websites, with my idea about what I wanted it to be, and basically how I said I want a global community of women who love walking. And I want to get more women walking and therefore make them happier. Because I believe if women are happy, the world is happy. And so I then got, straight after that, I got another press opportunity that was in Healthy magazine, which is the Holland Barrett publication. Yeah. And then there was one in Good Housekeeping magazine. So I had these 3 big pieces of coverage. And at the same time, I climbed Kilimanjaro. So I sort of used that as a hook, like a, local woman goes and does something stupid. And so I spoke to BBC Radio York. I went around there and I spoke to them, and they started inviting me back regularly to go and talk, to review the newspapers. And every time I went to review the newspapers, they would ask about Glamoraks. And it gradually just grew, and I wasn't doing anything. Like, literally, I wasn't doing anything with it. It was just a community of people. But I wanted to do something with it. And ultimately, I wanted to be my business. That's how I got it started.
But apart from, I guess, the hosting cost and the setting up the initial website, it effectively didn't cost you anything other than your time to create this thing, and it has become a global community in a very short space of time, hasn't it?
It has, and you're right, it hasn't. I mean, what it's cost me is whatever I paid for the hosting for the little website. I'm trying to think if I've spent money. I haven't really spent money on advertising or anything. I've just used social media and PR to sort of grow it, and word of mouth. And then there've been costs associated with, I've started to run some events. So like some walking weekends. So obviously there's a cash flow issue there because I've had to sort of pay up front for various like accommodation, and then people are paying for things. So there's been some of that, but ultimately it hasn't been it hasn't cost me really anything. It's just been my time and energy.
And was there anything you needed to change in yourself to enable you to do this?
I had to. So I have spent years and years and years suffering from that imposter syndrome and comparisonitis and low self-esteem and lack of self-belief. And I genuinely believe that the reason I always try to give my clients the best experience possible is because I'm always scared they're going to say that they don't like it. So I over try. And that feeling of not being perfect at something or not being experienced at something, I had to sort of put that to one side and sort of say, I'm not a qualified mountain leader. I'm not a travel agent. I've never led walks, for other people properly before. I'm not experienced in any way. I've not run a community like this. So all of those things, I had to just sort of stick to one side and say, it doesn't matter that you don't know how to do it. What is your aim? My aim is to get more women walking, because if they walk, they feel happy. And I can already see in the group the comments that people are making, the fact that they've met other people that they would never have met before, the fact that they're feeling happier, that they're walking further, having more adventures. I know that that is making a difference. So even if it's not global domination or making me a fortune yet, I know that it's been good. So the shift in me has been, stop trying to be perfect and focus on the bit that you were trying to achieve in the first place, and remember that, and then you'll do it.
Quite hard making a new venture out of something that is your passion, isn't it? Like going from the passion to a new venture is quite daunting in some respects.
I think the hardest part is transforming what is your downtime or passion into something that becomes a business, and you almost therefore take away what is your downtime. So, it's the same way if you love knitting, for example, and that's what you do to sort of space out, and then you decide your knitwear or whatever, people love it, so you start to make it as a business, and all of a sudden it's no longer fun, it's hard work. And so there's an element of that, but at the same time, I'm getting to do what I love doing, which is walking.
You've already talked a little bit about, what your mission is, but do you have a sort of, enormous big mission goal there for it? What's your dream for Glamoraks?
My dream for Glamoraks is that, it's funny because I was on a webinar about this the other day, and that you have to ask yourself, what lifestyle do you want? Do you want the CEO lifestyle where you are in board meetings and running this global, Airbnb style empire? Or do you want the small business lifestyle where you sort of have far more flexibility and freedom? Or do you want to be just a sort of a moonlighter? This is something you do on the side. And I'm definitely in the middle zone. I don't want to be a CEO and sit with shareholders and things. And I don't want to just tinker. I want this to be a business. But at the same time, my vision is that no matter where in the world you are, there'd be women who are Glamoraks, and they would recognize themselves as that, and that they would find people from New Zealand to India to South Africa to, Chile, no matter where they are, they've got other women to walk with. And that is my big vision. Really, I just want to get out walking.
It's interesting, that thing about the self-identifying, isn't it? Because I think women do self-identify with Glamoraks in the same way that they'll self-identify with the Mutton Club. If they get it, then they get it, and they get the whole sort of idea of it, don't they? Which I think is really exciting.
Yeah. Well, I've had quite a problem with that, because in my head, when I first set up the group, I was quite clear. Like, I wanted it for women in their 30s, 40s and 50s, possibly early 60s, because that to me was the group that I felt had the most constraints. They either had young kids or were really on this career sort of trajectory, or they had kids that were then leaving home and they were sort of a bit lost, or they were just starting, like often they end up getting divorced at that point, and they sort of refinding themselves. Whereas in their 20s, I felt they had more freedom and fewer constraints, and older, I felt they had more time because the kids would have left home and they would have perhaps retired. But actually, since setting it up, I've changed, and I think I don't really care what age anyone is. You can be any age, as long as you have the mindset of, I'm not a hardcore epic hiker. I'm not like a super adventurer that's going to scale Everest yet, but I might want to try and push myself a little bit further than what I am, and I enjoy walking, and I want to go meet other people. So it's sort of just a mindset, and people who get it will get it.
And can we explore a little bit more about why you're so passionate about walking? Because I know it's played a big part in your life, hasn't it?
Well, I've moved. I'm originally from South Africa, and I think people, if you've never left your home country, don't realize how hard it is to adopt a new country. And I moved from South Africa to Boston and then New York and then the UK. And even in the UK, I've moved and lived in 3 different places. And everywhere I'm new and everywhere is not home. And even home isn't home anymore because I haven't been there for so long. So you're sort of like a person without a root. And it's quite a lonely feeling. And I think when I had my kids, I went through a period of being really down. And I think I didn't realize it at the time how down I was until I actually went to see someone and they were like, oh yeah, you're suffering from like low level depression. And so I just try to self-manage that by doing exercise and that type of thing. But I was always on my own. And it was only after I moved to York and sort of made a really great group of friends that I felt less alone. But even, I wrote about this week actually, I think even when you're surrounded by friends, even if you've got a really active social life, what often happens is you stay at the superficial level. You're so busy chatting and mingling and that kind of thing that you don't get to that deep thing where someone's really talking to you and listening to you. And I find with walking, you absolutely do that, especially if you're walking with people you don't really know. They're not looking at you with this filter of you're a school mum or you're the co-worker. You're just that person and you can be honest. So I find it's really good for connecting and just for headspace and mental well-being.
I would totally concur with that. I did the Duke of Edinburgh 25-kilometre challenge last autumn, and with 2 women, one of whom I knew, I think she'll understand if I say fairly superficially. Our boys went to the same school, but we didn't really know each other very well. And then it was her sister-in-law, and by the time we'd done the walk and gone through all the mess and the rain and the cold and everything else and the camping, it was really great to have established that bond. You know, it is wonderful. Yeah, that's really, really great.
And also, just as an aside, I hate going to the gym. Like, I hate it. And so for me, if I go out and do an 11, 12-mile walk, I feel so much better mentally and emotionally, but I've also got my exercise in. And so it's like, it's multitasking, getting all the benefits in one go.
And the fresh air and all of that. And and also, what's that statistic that we're like 60% more creative when we're walking or something like that? Is that true? I'd seem to recall hearing that somewhere.
I mean, an example is last week I was in such a low place. I was just down in the dumps. I don't know. And I met up with 3 Glamoraks who I knew vaguely, but I didn't know well. And we went out for a nice 11-mile walk. And honestly, I came back and I was so energized. I was just bouncing, buzzing. And the next day, the whole day, I had the same energy. And I do these little fitness workouts at home. And normally I'm like huffing and puffing my way through them. Well, that day I could have done them 3 times over. I just felt so energized. Brilliant. So I just think when you're out walking, it does do it and it lasts. So get out there is all I'm saying.
Fantastic. So what do you think are key hurdles for women, or well, anybody, but particularly women in midlife, when they're trying to do something like this, start a new business or follow a new passion or start a new career? Do you have any thoughts on sort of the key obstacles we face?
I think that a lot of people who've known you in whichever guise you are for your whole life, I'm thinking parents, long-term friends, partners, they don't necessarily like to have change, and they don't really always appreciate this new person that you are becoming, and you need a supportive network. Now, I've battled with my family. They do not agree with the adventures I go on. I mean, to the point that we've had a complete falling out. Yeah. So it's quite, and it's difficult. And I mean, it's been like that when I was in my late 30s. I sailed across the Atlantic as part of the Clipper Around the World yacht race. And I only did that because I had a 3 and a 5-year-old, and I was just so tired of doing that, look after little kids, work, and then do housework. And there was and laundry, that was it, laundry. And I just had enough. And so I took myself off and did that. And it was crazy, honestly, crazy. But the amount of abuse I got for doing that was enormous because they said I was a bad mother and all this kind of stuff. And even now with my friends, I'm setting up new businesses and things, and they don't always get it because you're changing who you were. And when you disrupt your life, when you change your life, other people feel uncomfortable because it's going to have a knock-on effect for their life. They don't necessarily either want things to change, or they feel pressure or guilt that they aren't perhaps doing that. I don't know, but there's definitely, that is a stumbling block. And I think there is a perception that, I don't know, somehow you're supposed to have, you've done everything you're supposed to have done by this point, and so you should just sit there quietly in the corner and, I don't know, do what? But I mean, no.
Exactly. You see, I'm going to take a moment out now. This is exactly why we have Melissa on here, because she is not sitting in any little corner.
No one puts baby in the corner.
But
no, honestly, I just think you have to, I don't know, it's never been in my frame of reference. And the older I get, the more confident I get to go and do what I want to do, instead of thinking, I wonder what other people will think of me. And I just don't care now. It's like, if you don't like it, you don't have to be involved in it.
Oh, isn't that just fantastic? I love that. I love that finally comes to us in midlife and beyond. I mean, I just get so excited about the opportunities for me personally now. And because, we're not so driven to nurture anymore. We are more willing to put ourselves, at least higher to the top of the list than we have ever done before. And we can make massive change. We can do incredible things. Which is, so exciting.
Completely. And I think the other thing is, when you're younger, when you're in your teens and your 20s, you just, except for the few, who are out there that are sort of born confident and are just, changing the world by the time they're 18. I wasn't like that. And I had so much that I always wanted to be one of those people that was in the top 30 under 30, those the sort of, workplace things. And I never made that, ever. I didn't even get close to being a top 30 under 30. And so I've spent my whole life sort of thinking, I haven't done the things that I wanted to do. I haven't made my mark. I haven't made a difference. And it just occurred to me, it was like, so why wait? Why not do it now? Exactly. And there was a sense of waiting for something. It's like, why not now? So just do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how are you getting around those obstacles then? Are you just sort of going ahead and doing what you want to do and trying to negotiate the tricky waters?
To be honest, in terms of people not necessarily approving things, if they don't approve or they don't like it, I just walk away. There's nothing to do with me. I am my person. And as for the other challenges about, I still have 2 children who are tweens and teens, and it's me running everything. But I would rather do that and juggle and not be that organized, but just, so what? Who cares? It doesn't have to be perfect. And the other thing on that is, with the Glamoraks, I have made it a point, because I don't know how to be any different, of being super honest and telling people, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this group is going to be about. I've never run an expedition before. So I just tell them, I've never built an app before. Tell me what's right and what's wrong. And they tell me what's right and what's wrong. And so I can use their exact feedback to make something that is going to work for them, rather than thinking I have to know how to do this and put on a pretend face, pretend I know what I'm doing, and then get it wrong. So I would say, if anyone's thinking about doing something, be open and honest and expose your flaws, but get the feedback and learn from
I think that shines out of the group, actually, I would say. And I love that about the whole way that you communicate, everything that you write, because I follow, your blog articles and everything. You are incredibly honest, and you just literally, you are just you. There's no pretense. There's no anything. There's no, this is what you get on a Monday and this is what you get on a Wednesday. No, you are who you are. And I love that. And it's just being so genuine shines out of Glamoraks. No, it's brilliant.
But I think the thing is that everyone, if you talk to any branding guru or expert, they'll tell you just be yourself. But it's very hard to be yourself when you have this expectation. People will expect something from you. That you think you have to be something that you are not, or more professional or more polished or whatever, because that's what people will expect. But actually, if you're just if you just are honest and be who you are, people will connect with that far more readily.
And I think in the online space even more so. It's you know, there's only so much of a image you can put on, isn't there, really, when you're online, like, you know, something like this.
Yeah.
So what do you like about midlife? You've talked a little bit about how you don't care anymore. Is there anything else that you particularly like?
Well, I think having the confidence to be me, and I think not caring. So, for example, I'm really not particularly fashionable or into hair and makeup and the latest anything. I'm just not. It doesn't even factor in my radar. But I do look at other women that are put together, you know, my friends, and I think, gosh, I wish I could be more like that. But I actually don't care enough, really, to make it a focus for me. And I've come to the point of accepting that. I've also come to the point of really, really loving my body, not in the sense that I love the way it looks. I love the fact that it works. I have legs that function, and I can go for these walks, and I can breathe deeply, and I don't have asthma, and I've got a body that works. So even if there may not be bits about it that I like, I will park that in favor of having one that works. So that has been a mental shift that's really sort of worked for me. I think that's
massive, isn't it? I don't think we actually give our bodies enough gratitude. Because they do so much work for us, don't they? And we punish them, we don't look after them, and we're mean all the time. It's like, oh, you're so fat and you're so wrinkly and that's saggy. Like, stop being mean. It works. You know, it works. Bloody hell. So take that. So that, and I have to say, I think the just letting stuff go, whether it's people that are not good for you, or not having a clean house, or not being the perfect mother, let it go. I'm so much more relaxed with that. And I've also really let go the sense, I mean, when my kids were younger, I used to have this, I have to bake and I have to be this perfect, you know, whatever, and I have to get them to be doing everything just so, because that's so important. Now I just, as long as they're happy and feel loved, that's good. So that's made a big difference. There's lots about it that I love in contrast to, say, 10 years ago. Is there anything you don't like?
I get worse hangovers.
Yeah, I know, that sucks, doesn't it? It's like, oh, blimey. Can't take the alcohol like I could. Yeah.
I mean, I'd say the only thing I don't really like is that I feel as though sometimes I'm in that uncomfortable space between, there's certain shops or places you go and you walk in and I suddenly feel I'm too old to be here. And I'm,
you know, you're not allowed to say that on this. No.
I know, but I sometimes feel like that, and I feel, why do I feel like that? Because it's nothing, but it's suddenly like I've just had this shift, and I think I don't feel right being here. It doesn't happen often, but I would say there's a few occasions that it does, and I just give myself a slap and get on with it.
Good for you. Yeah. And apart from walking, what brings you joy?
Writing. I love writing. In 2013, I wrote about 70,000 words of a novel in 4 months. Wow. But then I realized I didn't like about 68,000 of those. So I parked it. But I do love writing, and I love seeing the everyday and turning that into a story. So that is for me a joy. And I do writing for a living as well. So a lot of my writing time gets taken up with doing work related rather than joy related writing. But walking, writing, sailing, and travel, and then spending time with my children, even though they're teenage boys and don't want to spend time with me. That would be. Yeah,
I've got those too. Oh no, they're not teenagers anymore. They're blimey. They're not even. No, one of them is. One of the boys is. He's still a teenager for a little bit longer. So I'm going to pinch now from. I'm a bit of a fan of Tim Ferriss and his podcast, and so I'm pinching from him. And I know this might throw you, but if you had a billboard that you could put anywhere and it had anything on it, where would it be and what would it say?
Where would it be? That's more of a challenge. I would love it to just say, just do it, but I think I might get sued by Nike. I think it would say, don't wait for perfect. Yeah. And I would put it anywhere that woman would be, whether that's outside a school gate or in a mall or anywhere, honestly, or on the drive to work or whatever it is. Just don't wait for perfect.
Perfectionism can really limit us, can't it? It can really stop us in our tracks. Yeah.
Well, it's just, if someone had said to me a year ago, if I'd said to myself, what I want to do is I want to set up a global community of women who like walking, and I'm going to have a website, and I'm going to have a group, and I'm going to develop an app, and I'm going to set up walks, and I'm going to lead the walks, and I'm going to do exactly, right? I would have just turned and run away. But what I did was like, well, it's not hard to create a Facebook group. You just go create group, set up, bam, done. Stick a picture on it, no problem. And it's like a Weebly website where you stick up some pictures on a template. Not hard. I could do both of those things. Then I could sit back and wait for the PR to send people to it. I didn't have to think about it. So if I had sat and tried to create this big plan and be all perfect, I would never have done it, ever. Yeah. But I have. Yeah. And so if anyone else is sitting there thinking, well, I'm really passionate about whatever, but I don't have a clue how to even set up a website or set up a Facebook group or whatever, start with what you can do and go from there.
It's like taking the first step, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then take another step and then another step.
No one expects it to be perfect. No
only
one.
Us. It's only in our heads, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. This was an extract from a longer video interview available in our members club. That's where you'll find the strategies, support and connection you need to live the very best next phase of life. You can find out more about the members club and get the show notes for this episode at magnificentmidlife.com. It would really help me get the message out and inspire more women to feel empowered in midlife and beyond if you left me a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you may be listening to this, and share this podcast with your friends too. Help me change the world, one midlife woman at a time.